address the committee.
Gwendolyn Hogan, 1850 West Point Drive. I would like to ask to have this put in writing for me as a taxpayer and a concerned citizen. I would like to know where the roads are being paved, who decides on who paves where, and I'd like to have the years of 2018, 19, and 20. And I want to know what roads that he's going to pave. We never see it. We never know. And I'd like to know, because I pay taxes, but I don't get my roads paid. And I would like to have that information. 2018, 19, and 20 of where the roads are going to be paved and who decides on who pays what road. Thank you.
Do we have anyone else who would like to address the committee?
Linda Noe, 2343 Joe Stevens Road. I'd like to ask that you consider having your budget meetings and your committee meetings taped, perhaps by your IT person, Mr. Atkins, or by the current person who tapes your regular commission meetings. You know, this is where you make the big decisions. Of course, they're all big decisions, but this is where information would come out to the public on what the budgets are, what the budgets include, what's happening as far as debt, as far as tax increases, and the discussions about those topics. So, you know, all he would have to do is say he works 40 hours a week, 160 hours a month, maybe 2, maybe 3 hours of his time, 3 of those 160 hours, to simply sit back there, tape your meetings, and put it on your website. Easy peasy. Thank you.
Do we have anyone else who would like to address the committee? In old business, we have none. In new business, we have the Highway Public Works 131, Mayor Britton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On highway and highway capital projects and sanitation, I'll lead those with the revenues, and then Barry, I'll turn things over to Barry on the expenditure side. Before the meeting, I passed out revisions to tab 53. So if you would replace that in your notebooks and just throw the old pages in the floor, just so you don't trip over them, but just so that you don't get them confused with the ones we just passed out. So I mentioned on Tuesday that this is a fluid process, that there'll be changes that will be submitted to you, and so we've got a revision to the book that went out to you already, and that's for debt service. We'll start tonight with tab 52. If you will turn to tab 52. Tab 52 is the Highway and Public Works Fund. And I'll just briefly go over the revenues and the overview. On Tuesday, we talked just a little bit about the revenues and expenditures, the highlights of the highway fund. And you'll see in local taxes on that first page, where it has local option sales tax and mineral sales tax, or mineral severance tax, we're holding those flat from budget to budget. There's no increase or decrease in those. So what happens when we distribute the sales tax, when it comes in next year, the first $86,000 that comes in and sales tax outside goes to the highway fund. So they get the first $86,000. And then the mineral severance tax was implemented several years ago for the highway fund. So that's the note on that page. On the next page, as far as revenues go, state aid, which is, if you look at account number, look on the far left, the account number, state aid program is 46,420. And our allotment each year from the state for state aid improvements is $180,000. And so some years it's banked when highway department doesn't get to the state aid projects. But for this coming year, we budgeted $180,000 for a state aid revenue. Now, that's money that comes from the state. And then the next line down is state revenue sharing money. And the highway fund is one of the funds that gets some of the state aid funds that comes from TVA. And that's $200,000. That is flat as well. And then the next revenue number is gas tax. That's the major source of revenue for the highway fund. And we're showing a decrease, and this is all estimates, a decrease of $82,800 in gas tax for next year. And we really weren't given much guidance from the state as far as how to estimate gas tax. And what we did is we took the last 2 months of this current year and reduced average for 10 months, and then took 20% from that and budgeted 80% of that for May and June. And then that total ended up being $2.2 million, and we just moved that over to next year. So again, it's an estimate. We'll be able to fine tune that as the year goes on, and we'll be able to fine tune in this budget based on what we see in gas tax when we receive it later this month. So overall in revenues, we are down $82,726 in this budget. So we started the year, if you turn to the last page of this tab, you turn to the very last page, and in the next to last column on the right, where it says estimated results, you look at the very bottom of it, it shows that we anticipate the fund balance to be about $1.4 million. And maybe a little less because Barry's been able to do some projects this month. We're getting ready to do some projects that may draw that down a couple $100,000. But so we'll start out with a healthy fund balance, and then we should end the year with a healthy fund balance as well. So that's where we are in revenues. I'll turn it over to Barry to talk about the expenditure side.
All right, any questions before we get started going through it? Want me to answer Gwen's questions at all, or we want to just have a private conversation? Are any of you wondering the same thing? Anybody got the same questions as Gwen?
Is that basically coming from the list that was passed out?
That list that you got is those roads that we rank in the worst condition, needing our attention the most. There's the north, south, east, and west part of the county. Those highlighted in green have been done. Some of them not totally, but some of them in portion and part. So those have been done in the last 2 or 3 years. There's about 10 roads that aren't on that list that I need to get on that list after we started more into our files and getting everything as complete as possible, so I can get you an updated list later on. Be glad to do that. There are no perfect decisions on where to pave. Wayne's Road may need it. Tim's Road may need it.
West Croxdale's not on your list again. That's the third list, they've not been on there yet.
Well, now, it wouldn't be on this, well, it may not be on this list, but it's on the road list, the official road list. But this is only a partial list of roads.
I think they changed the name of that road. The city has the old Croxdale Road.
I don't know that they could do that without asking us, or telling us.
My son's building a house out there, and that's what it was listed on West Roxdale, and going down Lawrence, you know what's that? It's
Yeah.
called Old Roxdale Road.
But to continue that thought, there's no perfect way to decide whether the roads are gonna be paved. The road commission weighs in. Sometimes I have conversations with you guys about your priorities. That weighs in, population, traffic counts, other factors weigh in, how much it's gonna cost to get it ready. Sometimes, when we got monies available and we got a contractor available, sometimes hard to get a contractor, so sometimes if we can get a road ready in a week versus it's gonna take 6 weeks on another road, we may decide to do the one we get ready in a week first, so it just varies. There's no perfect, no exactly scientific way to decide which roads are paved. We do the best we can. Ideally, we like to do some in the north, some in the south, some in the east, and some in the west. That's the way we've been trying to spread it out. We look at the county, we say, okay, in this area, what are our worst roads? Let's do something for these folks who live down here. Let's go to the opposite end and do the same thing and try to spread the money out that way. But there are no perfect decisions, and obviously politics is involved in all parts of life, from the White House down to our house. So, all right, you want to look at our budget? We have very little going on in the administration part of it. We've got some increases like in electricity or things like that. We've got a couple of decreases, the end result being we had an increase in administration of $3,400. Stop me whenever you need to. I'm moving on to the highway and bridge maintenance items. We've got some money that's been shifted around. I can tell you with that extra crew, I've only had a partial crew so far. We haven't been able to hire enough people to completely fill that crew. We've been at least too short. And it seems like if we get somebody hired, we'll have somebody quit. But that partial crew has been working on patching. They've been using that hot box. They've been working some on ditching and edging roads. So we are working who we've got with what we've got. And so I'd like to have 2 5-people crews eventually with the asphalt and the ditching. So we continue to look for people on that.
Very under 147, we've got a 61,753 increase. Truck driver.
Yeah, we moved that from the laborers to the truck drivers. Didn't we have a decrease? We had a budget figure of 132, and we're gonna, estimated results gonna be 70,000, so I think we shifted some money around in those line items.
So it's no new money.
No, I don't think so.
Okay,
We haven't planned to hire anybody in addition.
okay.
Medical insurance went up, or it looks like it's going up $11,000. That's probably because somebody's getting family coverage, some other, some more people will get family coverage and that type of thing. You move on to asphalt, we're gonna go over our asphalt budget, $67,000 this year. So we increased it $75,000 for next year. It's mainly because we're getting roads ready for paving and doing more patching now with that hot box that we got. So things are just growing. We had the gas tax money's been growing in the 131 fund since 16. We got that first year of implementation with that gas tax, we got like $360,000. The next year went up to like $490,000. And then final year, we're getting like $640,000. That money's been saved. We haven't spent it, but we want to on some, we have paved some roads and we want to do more with it. So just to let you know, that's one of the reasons we've got a good healthy fund balance. We've been saving all the extra gas tax. It hadn't been spent because we needed something substantial to pay with. At $125,000 a mile, it takes big bucks to pave, and so we had to have something substantial to do that with. But stone's the same way. We need more stone with the asphalt to get roads ready.
Is that 125, that doesn't count prep work?
Doesn't count prep work. That's just a brand new asphalt, 2 inches thick.
22 feet wide.
Well, it varies. It costs less than that for an 18-foot road. It'll cost around that for a 24-foot road. So I'm giving you the 24-foot wide figure. We're gonna decrease the salt, and just keep our fingers crossed it don't snow like it has been. I mean, we've had good 2 or 3 years of good, hadn't had to use much salt because we hadn't had much accumulation on the road, so you told them, if you will, to keep your fingers crossed. So we decreased that line item, end result being moved up at $94,000 in that group. Any questions about that? If not, I'll move on to operation and maintenance of equipment. We had an increase of $18,000 there. The maintenance of our equipment is basically the reason for that. That's a $15,000 increase. It trended up this year. It may go down next year. You can't ever tell what's going to go on, but we've got newer equipment, and we're hoping that will go down. I think what happened too, we had that asphalt crew that was T-boned by that car, and that expense went on this line item. We got insurance reimbursement for it. That expense went on this line item, so it's reflected in this line item. But anyway, we bumped it up a little bit for fear that it might do the same next year. I hope it doesn't. We move on to employee benefits, and that's down $4,000. And then the last group, the big dollar items, the 68,000 group, we've got a decrease of $180,000. We hadn't planned to buy any trucks or equipment. We're planning on spending at least $700,000 on paving, 200 of it being state aid, 500 of it being non-state aid. If the fund balance stays healthy, I'll add to that. If you got 5 miles, you can do about 3 miles plus, between 3 and 4 miles. So getting it ready is somewhat of a problem, but we should be able to get it ready faster. We got an additional crew now, so that is going good. We are getting it ready faster. We've got we're getting Mountain Valley Road ready. If you've ever been up on the east end, Mountain Valley Road's going to take several dollars to get it ready. And we contracted Brown Brothers. They're going to do about 7/500ths of a mile. It costs us about $90,000 to try to speed that process up. But the road commission elected to do that. They wanted to take some of that money that we've been saving and get some help on getting some roads ready, so we're doing that. We're just done Hunter Road, just got finished this week. You're down in the west end, done a couple little subdivision roads in West Gate. You can look at your list and see how we've been moving around in different areas, but that list you got, I'd like to eventually have it all green so that we know we've done all those roads that we feel like are in the most need. But any questions? We did reduce the budget, Bill, by how much did you address that? Total about $67,000. But we'll have to approach things carefully, obviously, with as far as the gas tax is being affected April, May, and June. And we're guessing it's gonna be affected July, August, and September, unless this virus stuff starts to come back and we shut the nation down again. But if we could, you know, we're looking at a 6-month stretch where we're not getting as much as we were, so
It's going back up,
there's the count.
by gallon.
Yes.
Today, it's done several cents.
Vacation time, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
What, I know the last 2 springs have been wet. And we had, I know Meadowview, Westgate, in my district have really been hammered with flooding. And I tried to keep an eye on it this year, and it wasn't as bad as it was last year. And then we have a couple of houses, and I don't know whether this is your purview or not, but we have a couple of houses that are just flooding in the back like lakes.
Yeah.
You know, and it's all runoff, I'm sure. What do we need to do about that? Is there anything we can do about it?
We looked at that, Bobby, last year when all that was going on, and we have to get the water off the road for the traveling public. And so, in subdivisions like that, the design is to move the water off the road at lot lines, because there's a drainage easement on the lot lines. And so, it's a catch-22. You gotta get the water off the road, however, it's gonna go on to private property. And with that down there in Westgate, we would have been glad to help with it, but every way we look, both south, east, and west, we couldn't move the water unless we put ourselves in liability to some property owner downstream. And so, we couldn't help with it. I sought the advice of the county attorney. Bill and I looked at it. Our hands are tied on stuff like that. I mean, it's up to the property owner to protect themselves the way they develop the lot. And once the roads are built and constructed and ready for people to develop the property, each individual lot owner has that responsibility to protect himself from the drainage, whether it be on the road or from another piece of property. So,
Even if it's on the road or something?
even if it's on the road.
So we're not.
I think the problem there, it's underground water. There's a river that runs it. Somebody took a drone and flew over, and you could see it came right down the railroad track.
Yeah.
All the way to Jeff City, crossed over where the dog place is there. But it's underground water. And when the water underneath is full, it has nowhere to go but up.
True, very true. Okay, well, I've got an answer for these folks anyway. So there's no relief from the county?
Not that I'm aware of.
How many thousands of gallons did the fire department take to the lake?
Oh, my.
I mean, it was,
Filling the lake up?
Yeah.
yeah, but it just ran right back.
I know.
It was just recycled it.
Chasing your tail on that.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we approve this budget subject to any changes made at the State Department.
I'll second. Got a motion, we've got a second. Any discussion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition, like sign? Motion carries. Item 4B, Highway Capital Project Fund 176. Mayor Britton?
This one will take about 60 seconds or less. You look at tab 54. And capital highway projects, this is, I think, and Barry, you correct me if I'm wrong, this is where we bought some of that equipment for the patch and crew. We bought the patch and crew equipment from this fund last year. And so we anticipate finishing the year with a balance of $179,000 in the fund. The revenue that went into the fund to help pay for that equipment, along with the reserves in there, was a share of the TVA revenue sharing money. And on the first page of that, you'll see $136,000 under estimated results. We put $136,000 of the TDA revenue sharing money into this fund, and that was the plan in the budget for this year. We have moved that money.
Let me ask you something. You said, it's what I'm showing.
Well, let me do this. My numbers and Barry's numbers don't jive, so let me come back next time and give you the story. Okay, so again, this is one of the fund that we did buy that equipment out of. So I'll talk to Ann and I'll get the story behind it. Okay, tab 50. Which is solid waste, or they're known as the garbage fund. And on the revenue side of the garbage fund, or the bold, on the right column, the bold column, the column in bold print, that's the proposed budget numbers. Because we don't know what the certified tax rate is going to be and what a penny will bring in with the new tax rate. We just held that the same, and we'll adjust that once we get the certified tax rate. On sales tax, you'll see a reduction of $47,000 on sales tax. And again, that's an estimate. Beer tax, wholesale beer tax, we're also estimating that will go down a little bit. So total revenues for the solid waste fund, total revenues are down $62,000 on the revenue side. If you look at the last page of the tab, you'll see the projected fund balance is we expect to end the year that we're in now at around 1.9 million. And then you balance the budget with fund balance next year and finish next year with 1.6 million. So revenue's down about 62,000. But then the history with this fund has been that when the fund, back in the early 2000s, when the fund was basically broke, it was in the negative, the commission then raised the tax rate for it, and it built a significant fund balance. And then as service has grown and our, I guess, volume of trash and bulk waste has grown, that's gone to the landfill that we have to pay for, we've been using fund balance for it. So,
Mayor,
yes.
that 340,000 shortfall, we're going to use fund balance on the estimate.
Correct.
Okay. What is the balance that we try to keep in that fund balance?
Well, I mean,
What's the percentage or?
we just, in my opinion, we need about 3 months worth of operating,
Okay.
3 to 4 months worth of operating.
So we're still good?
Yes.
Okay.
I turn on Barry for expenses.
Okay. This budget starts out in the payroll. What we'd like to do is talk to you about what you want to do with the collection service at this point. I know some of you get a lot of complaints, and we talked at length about the collection, and we were looking at changing some policies, and we backed off that to sometime in the future when you want to resume that committee. But we're out there, we've made this the bulk trash collection priority, the junk and brush. We make sure we have 5 trucks on the road every day, even if the regular residential garbage trucks, if they're short, then those guys work overtime to make up for their route. Because what we had done in the past, if the garbage trucks were needing a driver because somebody was out sick or on vacation, we pulled from the brush truck crew to make it happen. And so with the enormous volume of things we're taking to landfill in those brush trucks, we made that the priority. And so we're still, you know, we might, let's say we begin on the west end, on Monday's route, and then we'll move to Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Well, on Monday's route, we might be there 4 days. We might move to Tuesday's route and be there 2.5 days. And we might move to Wednesday's route and be there 5 days. So there's no predictability. And we get it when we come to it. If it's somebody that has stuff out, junk and brush out all the time, we get a truckload and we go on to the next customer. Now, if they seldom ever put it out there for us and they've got 2 truckloads, we'll go ahead and get 2 truckloads and move on down the line. But if you got people that are just setting it out, almost right behind you, we're limited to 1 truckload, but we're taking 2 or 3 weeks on the one end of the county with 5 trucks running. We're talking about 180 to 200 loads a month on one end of the county. So it's just unbelievable. It's exploded. And I know you guys are hearing it. I know Chris has heard it. Howard's heard it. And it's just, so do you want to add another truck or you want to just keep trucking like we're doing? Just keep with the same staff and the same number of trucks? I mean, that's sort of where we are, or do we want to reconvene the committee and try to establish some limitations? That's sort of where we are in the garbage department.
Larry, as you look about doing trailers like the city does,
Well, we'd have to get, you know, different trucks, in different trailers. Because they got to unhook them. Jim can tell you more about that. But we're talking about a new look or a new mechanism for the fleet.
You know, what they do is, they'll take the truck that you've had for a while, so I get engine and chassis to it, say a garbage truck. You'll take a dump truck cylinder, you'll turn it around to make that raise up. And it all sounds okay, you can do all that, but you need 2 trucks for that reason, because if that one fails, you've got trailers sitting there waiting to be dumped that can't be dumped, so you actually need 2 trucks. One as a backup. I don't think the location that we have is so broad, so many miles of travel, that it's feasible to go to the trailer system. I think the best thing with what's going on right now with coronavirus is to tell people to be patient. You just don't have to be patient. I've got phone calls also from people, and I just said, listen, just everybody stay at home this time of the year, and people's out trying to make money and doing an odd job by cutting trees. Odd jobs by going to contracting ourselves out to do jobs for people, and it's just too much right now. I don't think the answer is add another truck because you're adding expenses again. I think we need to leave it, in my opinion, like it is. And when people call and say, listen, we're going to get to you, you're just going to have to be patient.
How far are we behind? About 3 months?
Well, I don't know what you would call behind. I mean, we never felt like we got to the place where we were caught up. I mean, not in the last couple of years anyway. There's been times in the wintertime we could do the west end in a week, move to the east end, do it in a week. But that was in the wintertime. In the last couple of years, we've made it through the wintertime to about 1st of March, and all of a sudden it explodes, and we're ranking anywhere from, 2 to 3 weeks on one side of the county. So, I apologize, I can't tell you exactly.
We've had a lot of storm damage recently too, and those trees have pulled out a lot of wood.
Yes.
I think that's the other combination also. The storm just moved through, with people being home, and this time of the year, it's just all 3 is hitting at the same time. I agree.
I do like the idea you had, or suggestion, maybe in the future, is finding a place on the west end to burn, but a burn pit on the west end and one on the east, would take, I know from Bobby's house, round trip was an hour and a half, just, if you could take that, you could take, as you said, you know, if you're on West End working, you can go dump that in a burn pit, don't have to burn every day. But
What would it take, Barry, to investigate that?
Well, we would need to work through the planning commission, because environmentally, there are a lot of concerns.
Sure.
And a clear zone would be required, and some acreage, you need probably 5, 10 acres of
I didn't know
land.
if it was something we, joint effort with the city even.
Well-
You know, because if we utilize industrial parks, it's city-owned land basically, and it might be something we can join effort with them with the same idea. You know, they have leaf drop places and whatever. But, you know, on being behind, I kind of agree with Jim here, to stay put right now. You know, not add any more than we need to, but what about overtime? Are the guys working? I mean, how does that work with you?
What we're doing is, we're starting at 6. The other guys start at 7. But the brush crew starts at 6, and they work till, I think they have to have their last load at the landfill at 3:45.
Okay.
Or maybe 3:45, 4 o'clock. So we got an hour extra each day, and you're looking at, they are working every other Friday. Normally we quit at 11, they're working all the way till the 3:45 mark on Friday. And then Saturday, we just feel like it's almost futile to try it, because the landfill don't open till 7:30 and it closes at 10:45. And we might get a load out there, we might get lucky and get 2, so those guys won't be their family just like everybody else. And I know several of them are single parents and they don't get their children but once every other week or once a month, and so that's the kind of overtime we're working. Of course, that's a budget then that you're gonna see before long before that, but
And you have adjusted like pickup where they can come to the shop with a full load and, you know, instead of,
well, we can't get it dumped at the landfill at 7:30. So if we are starting at 6, we don't want to come in with a full load, because we'd wait an hour and a half before we can get it
I
off.
got
So
you, okay, I got you.
Barry, do you bring many trucks like you was on the west end, you see you can't make the landfill to 3:45? Do you just not pick that up, or can you pick it up and take it to your garage and park it the next morning and take it out there?
well, you can do that. If you're gonna start at 7, then you can go on out to the landfill and be there at 7:15, 7:20, wait 10 minutes and then dump it. But starting at 6, we don't wanna do
The
that.
landfill doesn't open 7 during the week,
7:30.
7:30.
So, but we can, with less traffic on the road and everything, we can get more picked up from 6 to 7:30 than, you know, if we got a lot of traffic to deal with. But,
I have one idea there. I mean, this is just an idea. If we did educate our community to separate,
yes.
and we got a burn pits, you know, maybe you can start earlier. Or, you know what I'm saying, pick up brush earlier or something, or later, or whatever. You know, that's an idea. It's just a thought.
Well, I was talking with Tina Whitaker with the Planning Commission. She was talking about maybe doing some videos. We got a home page that we might could put a video on. We got a Facebook page we might could put a video on and talk about that. The sorting that needs to happen, how you lay brush in a brush pile so that we can get the most when we pick it up.
not to put it in the ditch line.
Not to put it in the ditch line. Yeah.
Location stuff is notorious. I can tell you where they'll put it anywhere that you don't want to put it.
And they'll put it right beside their driveway too, so they can't see when they back out, and then they'll call us and say, we can't see, y'all gotta get it out of the way. You know, who put it there? I'm sorry.
Exactly.
You know, but you get that stuff all the time, but,
I'll say something else about the trailer situation. If the county, to answer Wayne Nisbet's comment, question, if you're looking to go to a trailer system like that, the Pac-Mac is like $175,000 truck. Then your trailer you have to purchase, $20,000 to $30,000 a head. You're just looking to an astronomical amount of money to go to a trailer system. And I think the system that the county has is a fit because of the way you have to go. You have, the city march has a central location to go to, the rest of the county does not, so that's why we prefer that.
Barry, what do you suggest we do to get this cleaned up? What's your ideas on it?
Well, for us to move faster, there's gonna have to be some limitations. And I don't, you know, you can approach it from all different angles. You say, okay, when we get to your house, John Doe, we're gonna stay there 15 minutes doing that collection. Now, at the end of 15 minutes, we gotta move on to somebody else. Now, we might get 2 scoops, or we might, based on how, you know, some of this brush, they crisscross it and place it in a way that you got almost untangle it before you pick it up. But, you know, you say, we're gonna do 15 minutes, or we're gonna do 10 minutes, and make a time frame. Or you can say, we're gonna get 6 scoops, or we're gonna get 12 scoops, or whatever, you know, approach it from that angle. Or, I mean, whatever you do in terms of putting limitations on there, you're gonna leave it at you're gonna leave some at a lot of places, because it's just unbelievable how much people will put out there sometimes. And we've gone down the road and got that road cleaned up and turned around at the end of the road to go back to the landfill and come up the road, and somebody's got a pile back out there. I mean, it's just unbelievable. But, you know, if
they don't separate it, don't pick it up.
Well, you know, if we get them educated, and they do that stuff, and we say,
Go a lot quicker.
yeah,
Barry, we tried to educate the general public on how to do it. Stack your brush straight, don't cross it, don't put this in that pile of it. We even work with the people and tell them how to do it. I've never heard anything about it.
no, how do we accomplish that?
They don't know how to do it, somebody didn't tell them.
The other issue too is that if it has to be separated, it all goes in the landfill. You don't burn it, right?
That's right. That's my sword.
Well, while we're trying to send out a thing to all the homeowners like that, showing pictures, is that what you want to do? And tell them how, because that's an important thing. If everybody learn how to do it the same way, put it there where it makes one scoop, pick it up that way, that's gonna save a lot of hassle. And try to educate them. I think the education is where things go. And if they're not doing it right, then we need to do something that bite the teeth in there, make them get out and do it, or they won't pick it up.
You got a lot of people going through piles, you know, and they'll see bags, and they want to find out what's in the bag, see if they can use it. And some people will put it in bags all neat and tidy for us to pick up, and all of a sudden, 2 days later, you go down through there, and somebody's been in and just scattered it out all over the place. So we do need some teeth.
Larry, what about these professional landscapers, if you will, and tree trimmers and whatnot, who go out there and get paid to cut all this stuff? They're supposed to haul that stuff off, but they put it at the curb. How can we combat that?
Well, again, you're gonna have to decide, you gotta put teeth in it, you're gonna decide how you're gonna, if the neighbor tells you they've done it, do you go on that? Or do you have to see them with your own eyes by, you know, the highway, garbage department personnel? So who has to catch it? You gotta decide that first, and then the penalty next. But they know, they do it in a sneaking fashion.
Barry, I think most people understand if you got a trash pile, that everybody assumes that everything's thrown in that same trash pile.
Right.
It could be a washer dryer, it could be anything. It's a trash pile. See, and they're not educated, no, the trash is one pile. The poor rush should be another way, lines certain way. I really think it's an education thing. I mean, even myself, I don't know, Jim, I do it right or wrong or not, but, you know, nobody's educated me about what I should do or not do about that. I've lived here for 45 years, I don't know, but it looks to me like it's time for education, and we can send out to everybody and really give some education, spend $10,000, and it might save you $100,000 down the road if people are educated.
I think it's a good idea. Do we send out a booklet or something like that?
Well, Tommy shared with me a copy of the regulations dealing with bulk waste when we started the service for the county. I didn't even know such a document was available. We may need to go back and reprint that, and send it out to all the homeowners.
That was in,
Because it was pretty clear.
it was in 2000 or 2005
I
or
don't remember the
something.
year, but,
The commission approved those policies.
it addressed, bulk waste. It was very clear about it.
It's just never been enforced.
Right, a lot of regulations already out there, and we're just not enforcing. But you
You
know,
need to let Barry be in on the ground working on this thing, because his guys are the ones that pick it up.
I think with
Whoever-
education,
Whoever does it, planning, whoever, Barry needs to say, you know, this is what I've gotta have or to pick this up. Not somebody not gonna be mad about brush and trash.
I think we need to follow up on that quickly, though, maybe the education, using the radio, using newspaper, using a flyer.
Facebook.
Facebook, all these medias, maybe more than once, you know, and maybe, you know, let the county pull together, come up with a campaign, county pull together, you know, just, because it's about them, we're saving money by pulling together.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the idea.
What's your protocol if you've got a lot of medical waste and it's commingled and you don't want your workers to be infected? What's your protocol?
Needles are supposed to be put in it's like a gallon jug or something like that, so that they can't penetrate it and stick in their skin. So the medical waste in terms of soft stuff, clothing, and that type of thing, we ask for that to be put in a bag of some sort that's tied up. But we probably need.
When you find it, what's your protocol for your workers?
They feel threatened. They feel threatened physically by what they see. They don't collect it, and we try to make contact with that property owner and then work it out with them. But we probably need somebody in the medical profession to advise us on stuff like that. I'd feel better about it.
I think we educate them, and the penalty is just simply you don't get your bulk waste picked up. And they need to be, you know, because it looks bad when it sits there for 3 weeks and there's nothing you can do about it. So it falls back on the public, and they're responsible for somewhere. Bottom line.
Yeah.
I'd recommend we hold off until we can get this education,
Yes.
see where that goes. I'd like to see us start with education first before we enforce, you know what I'm saying? Try to have a really good campaign of education and see where we're at. But we need to put some feet on it and get going.
And some teeth in it.
And is there a budget for that?
That I don't know, we may have to propose that. That may be one of our discussions here, that we, like Joe said, spend 10 to save 100, and it's possible. It's possible.
Yes, it is.
And maybe at the same time, use the medical examiner about the waste.
Tell you what, we have a problem with more medical waste is the pets, putting the pets.
Carcass,
The
Waste.
yeah, and a lot of people put in the garbage, they'll put paint cans that still have paint in there, and when it's compressed, so, you know, stuff like that, I don't know if you'll ever totally get rid of it, but it could be part of the education process.
Chairman.
Process of doing it.
Randy?
I've got a question here. The recycling, county sent out instructions on what to put where and what they would take. Did y'all do that deal? That's what I'm saying.
Blue bags.
Yeah, but that's the same thing you got. But they sent that out not long ago.
And that's my question is, how effective has anything that we've done so far been at reaching the public to make a change?
if I can gauge that for you. I don't know if I can tell you. We don't have any problem with recycling. I mean, very seldom. That's the cleanest collection of all, and it goes the smoothest. I mean, but participation, people recycling what they can hadn't gone up, and in terms of the number of people doing it. I'd like to see, I'm sure you all would too, the number of people. I'd like to see everybody recycle when it's available and they can, but about 20–25% participation is what we've got, and it's stayed that way for years.
I believe I'd like to make the motion, or ask Chairman Shipley if he would consider, let's work through the budget, get this done. And as soon as the budget's over, that we reconvene that committee possibly for a public service announcement idea, or a public service campaign. You know, just get something going here and put some feet on that.
So do we have a motion?
I don't know if that's proper at this point, but I'll make that motion.
Make it as a motion, restate your motion if you would.
Well, it's more of a statement, I guess, that we convene after budget time. You know, when we have more time to sit down, reconvene our solid waste debris pickup committee.
So is that a motion to accept as proposed?
No, sir, I didn't do that. I didn't know if Barry was finished and was.
We can reconvene that committee without a motion. Sure. You can reconvene it, but if you want to make a motion, go ahead and do it.
Well, I think the idea is, are you finished with your presentation?
Yes.
Then I'll make the motion that we accept his budget as proposed.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion?
I just got one question. We're talking about recycling, kind of a novice at this, so, if I go out and collect cans, go in my truck, take them to the recycler, I'll get a few cents. Now, we recycle countywide, do we get any revenue from that?
Well, the cost of recycling has gone to zero, and Bill's more familiar with it, and we're taking it to landfill now, and then I think they take it to Knoxville, and so it's a tremendously reduced cost, I know, but I don't know what the price is gonna do. Will you help me out, Bill?
Yeah, there's not much of a market right now for recyclables, and,
We actually pay for it.
yeah, we do.
Do we have to pay to transport it to Knoxville?
Yeah, the
That's
landfill does.
kind of my thing is,
Yes.
you know, we're paying someone to recycle for us, and somebody's making money here. Nobody's making money?
Right now with the recycle market, because China quit taking the overseas markets, the overseas recycle markets quit taking our recycling, the prices have just plummeted. And so like glass, for example, there's nobody, I mean, the advice is you landfill glass. There's nobody that takes glass.
There'll be a big market for it coming up.
And plastic's in that too.
Pardon?
Plastic?
Yeah, plastic. Right now, cardboard and aluminum are the ones that there's a market for. Everything else, there's not. Some plastics, but not all.
Yeah, so there is a market to some degree. I mean, somebody's making money off of this, or they wouldn't do it, correct?
What's happening right now, Bobby, is all right, like Barry and the city of Morristown dump their recycle trucks at the landfill. We also have the recycling center out there now.
Right.
Okay, so we have a couple of compactors. In West Rock, it's named something else now, is the processor in Knoxville. And they come and they transport the compactor to Knoxville and put it in their processor. And they charge us, charge the landfill, which we pay tipping fees to, for the transport. And what's happened is, in the last year and a half, since they changed ownership, they haven't charged us for the materials themselves, but we're starting to see that in bills now. So anyway, that's something else to work out. But recycling isn't what it used to be. And right now, West Rock is landfilling most of what they collect.
Versus us having to, because it would go down the landfill.
I'm just curious, what is the life of a landfill remaining?
We're in the middle of a study of the life of our landfill, and we've got an expansion that's going to be planned. Right now, it's between 2 and 5 years is what's left of the cell that we have.
So any other discussion? Any other questions? If not, all in favor, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition, like sign? Motion carries. Item 4D, Debt Service Fund 151, Mayor Brennan.
Okay, let's see. I mentioned on Tuesday how fluid this process is, and on Tuesday also I presented a debt service budget that called for a 5-cent increase in property tax rate. Well, over the last couple of days, I've been in discussions with our Justice Center project manager, Brian Payne with Mosley, and with our financial advisor, Chris Bessler of Cumberland Securities. And we're in a position where to change that recommendation. We evaluated, what we did is over the last couple of days, we evaluated the timeline. Where are we in the process? Back when we first started talking about a 5-cent increase to pay for the construction of the facility, we were talking a timeline where we would need money sooner than where we are right now. Also, the interest rates. When we issued the bonds back in January, we saw our interest rates were at record low levels, and they're even lower now. And we market folks anticipate them to stay low because of the economy for the next year and a half. So what we, I guess, came up with and the conclusions we came to was with the debt service schedule on how we would issue the subsequent bond issues. We did the first one in January of 20. We'll do the second one in February of 21. The third one probably December of 21. And then if we have a last one, it would be in September of 22. So it's extended a little bit, and so we won't have those interest costs that we anticipated, say 6-9 months ago when we first came to you with the estimate of the 5-cent increase. So the timing of the issues is one thing. The interest rates we talked about, 2.39 is what we received, a net rate. In January, rates right now, if we went to the market right now, would be around 2. So the rates are down. Plus, we are going to end this year in the debt service $300,000 better than we estimated a year ago, with revenues going well, more interest income being earned, property taxes exceeding budget, because again, as I mentioned Tuesday, on the revenue side, we're very conservative. And so we're going to finish this year $300,000 better than we anticipated. So all that being said, I guess the bottom line is that I come to you this afternoon basically with a budget proposal that would require a 3-cent increase in the property tax rate. And that would generate about $411,000 new dollars to to finance the Justice Center jail project and the school project for the entirety. And if revenues hold steady, then there wouldn't be any need for additional revenue for the construction of the facility. And what that means is for a $150,000 house, the tax increase would be $11.25. And then, you know, seniors, the seniors that are on the state tax relief and the state tax freeze program would have no increase because their taxes are frozen. And so, and there's about 1,300 low-income seniors that are on the program. So let me show you this chart that was passed out to you before. It'll be on your screen. You'll see it better on your screen. This kind of shows you this chart shows you, I guess, what would happen with this proposal. If you look at the red horizontal line that runs over $6 million, over the $6 million line, that red horizontal line, that's the revenue line. That shows our revenue. And then you have the vertical lines, and those are the payments or the debt expenses for those fiscal years. And you see that over the next 4 years, well actually 2.5 years, I guess, going on 3 years, our expenses or our debt payments do not exceed the revenue. And then there's 4 years that we would use fund balance to pay off debt, and then we have capacity again. So, and basically that corresponds with paying off a $10 million bond we have now in 2025. It's called the E4A, which was used to build some schools and back in around 2000, 2002, and 2003. And then the dotted line that's in the chart, that's the fund balance, what it looks like. So we're building $300,000 in fund balance this year, or 300 more than we anticipated, and then we will build fund balance the next 2 years, and then we'll start using fund balance for 4 years, and then we have capacity and would be using fund balance more. Now, so this is a picture of what our debt service would look like over the life of the Justice Center financing. So you see the gap between the vertical line and the red horizontal line. The white space is what we call capacity. That's capacity to service more debt if we need other school projects or other projects that we might need. So we have a level, the plan is to issue level debt. So you will build capacity every year once you reach, I think it's 2025 or 2026. And so you build capacity every year.
That's including your proposed 3 cent.
Yes. Yeah, this picture is with a 3 cent increase.
Yes.
This 5 cent and 3 cent now. Tell me again what that's gonna be used for.
To pay off the money we borrow to build the Justice Center and West High School renovation. We borrow money to pay for it, and then we pay it back, just like a mortgage.
Right.
That's what it's for.
That's a $20,000 bond, $20 million bond we got.
Right now.
The school got 12 million.
School's got $10,700,000.
Okay, and we kept the rest of it to
Correct.
buy houses and lots and stuff like that. And
For
this
Justice
additional
Fund.
money will be, is that the interest off of it that we're paying for?
Part of it. Part of it's interest, part of it's principal.
Or just the other day, we did, about a month or so ago, we did one about where we paid $213,000 or $313,000.
We did what?
To pay the interest rate on it. It was about a couple of months ago we did that.
We closed the bond issue in January where the rate was 239. Is that what you're talking
No, I'm
about?
talking about the interest we had. I've got it up down in my other book.
Okay.
We just did some. And I asked you how often we get it, you said every 6 months.
Every 6 months, we make an interest.
What was that for now?
The 213 or right around 213. Let me see.
It's 285, right? 265 or 85?
For the interest for this year for the 2020 bond. And then next year, it'd be a full year. And then in our discussion today with the finance advisor, we were talking about the interest cost for next year for the next 20 million, and it would be right around 216,000.
Okay, so this tax increase is to cover those expenses for the rest of this year and next year?
For the next 30 years for this project.
And then you'll, yeah, that's gonna cover it. That's all we're gonna have involved in it for the next 30 years.
For this project.
What did they, should we not approve this? What's the repercussions with our credit rating?
Well, it'll affect our credit rating when we go back to the market. And the bond rating agencies will see that we're not willing to raise the revenue to finance the bonds that we issue. And right now we have a AA3 and I think an AAA. We have strong credit rating right now. But they look at, Howard, they look at a couple of things when they set our ratings. And the rating's a big issue as far as interest rates go. I mean, the market and our credit rating and I mean, even with this last bond issue, the buyers of the bond, the underwriters, the underwriters who bought them from us and then resold them, they insured them to make them AAA bonds, just to make them even more appealing on the market. So, but yeah, if we don't raise the revenue needed, it will affect our credit rating and make the cost of the project more, because the cost of money would go up.
Do you know how much that cost of money will increase? By not doing this, we don't know what our rating will go.
No,
so
I don't.
there's
No, I don't.
It's just a really tough time to consider a tax increase. To me,
I understand.
When you don't know.
I'm not saying I won't go along with it, I'm just saying it's a tough decision.
To help in that decision, we'll see a little bit more of the state numbers before we're through this process.
We'll receive during the month of June the sales tax numbers, the worst numbers.
Right.
We'll see the bottom. Yeah, we'll see the bottom.
We'll also see our internet sales tax within that too.
Yes, we will.
But the state revenue doesn't has anything to do with this, does it?
There, let's look at that. The revenue is the first 2 pages, and the bulk of it's property tax, and then we have $63,000 in sales tax in there. We have a litigation tax that is used and charged to litigants. That goes strictly to jail courthouse construction projects. And a few years ago, well, actually several years ago, we put that in the debt service fund to pay for the courthouse and Justice Center projects of the past. Then you have bank excise tax.
We get the interest that we generate on this money before it's spent, Then it go into this fund too?
All interest income in all funds except for schools, cafeteria, and drug fund goes to debt service fund.
What about, unpaid taxes when they're finally collected?
It's divided among the funds based on the percentage of, let's say for example, it's based on the percentage of the tax rates for the various funds for prior year taxes. Let's say general fund was 30%, schools was 60%, and debt service was 10%. Then it's divided that way.